Hey guys, today I'm gonna do a video on like how to start your zentangle, your form for your 3D design zentangle. So I apologize up front for my messy hair and my unkempt appearance. It's like 10:30 on Sunday, so I'm just about ready for bed. But I wanted to do this real quick before I go to bed. Maybe I'll cover this up with a hat. This will work. All right, cool. So what I have in front of me is just some plain white copy paper. And the first thing I have to do is I want to think about what my form is going to look like when I put it all together. So I've got this just plain white box that probably a power cord came in or something. So what I have to do first is I have to think about what this is going to look like, what my form is going to look like when it's all put together from this angle, from this angle, and from this angle. So I'm just going to do some rough sketches. They don't have to be fantastic. They don't have to be good looking. It's just a way for me to put my thinking on paper to keep track of where my thought process is going. So I'll draw this. My inspiration for this form is orange slice. So I'm going to try to create a template for a form that I can fold together that's going to look like a slice of orange. So I'm going to do a sketch of what it's going to look like from the side. Do a sketch of what it's going to look like. So what is that orange? You know what? Maybe I'll draw it on here so that you guys can visualize this. So you guys can see it with me. So from this side, my orange slice is going to look like that. But if I turn it this way, what's it going to look like? Well, this is going to be a point, and it's going to probably actually, it's probably going to be flat on the bottom. So from that side, and then it's going to look like this from this side. So now what is it going to look like from the top? Well, there's going to be a peak down the middle, and it's probably going to actually look like something like that. So from there, oops, to there. So that's what it's going to look like. So I'm going to put those sketches on a piece of paper, and then it might be wider down there. So this is what my sketches look like, and that's it. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to try to draw a template that's going to work, I think, maybe. So I'll pause it. You don't have to watch me draw. When this video starts again, my template will be drawn. Alright, so I'm back. It was getting too warm, so I took the hat off. So here's the original. No, that's not it. Where'd they go? Here they are. Here's the original sketches, and now this is my design. So the black line, the heavy black line is the stuff that I'm going to cut out, and then the gray lines are actually lines that I measured. So I want to talk about that for a second. So I know that because this line curves, and because this part of this shape of the form is going to curve along that line like this, I knew that this piece was going to be longer than this football shape up here, but I don't know how much longer. So I made it a little bit longer. I think I made it an extra ½ inch, and I'm not sure if that's going to work. So what I'm going to do now, what you would do at this point if this was your design, is ouch, that's hot. Nope, that doesn't look good either. There we go. So if this was your design, what you would do at this point is you would take this and you would put it in the folder in front of the room, and then I would make you 3 copies so that you could test out to see if this is actually going to work. So I'm going to take this now to my copier upstairs. I'm going to make a couple copies, and I'm going to test it out to see if it works. Alright, so I'm back, and I forgot a critical step. It's not going to affect me here in my basement, but for you, if you forget this, it makes both of our lives more difficult. So we want to keep our original, and we don't want to make any kind of extra marks on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my original, and with a colored marker or a colored pencil, I'm going to write my name. And the reason I want to use some kind of a colored writing utensil is because when I go to make copies, it's going to come out black and white. And that's an easy way to keep track of which is my original and which are my copies. So before I did that, I made my copies. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, and let's see if they work. Alright, so I've got my template cut out completely. Now I'm going to start folding it together. And there's 2 things that I'm going to do before I start folding it. The first is I'm going to score the paper. And what that means is I'm actually going to take a pencil, or you can take anything with a kind of a sharp point on it. And I'm going to use a straight edge. And I'm going to basically press down and dig into the paper, and what that's going to do is that's going to create a crease so that my paper folds smoothly, and I'll show you. So this is going to be a fold, so I'm going to line my ruler up with that, and I'm going to press pretty hard right down the middle, and then each of these tabs. Now remember, when you're making this form, you're going to have construction tabs. And, oops, pressed a little too hard on that one. Let's see if I got another pencil. There we go. Doesn't matter what color it is, because, number one, nobody's going to see this form because it's a practice. And number 2, when I actually do fold this, I'm going to actually fold it inside out. I'm going to do my zentangling on this side so that when I fold it, none of the extra construction lines are visible. So basically, I'm going to build them all inside out. Okay, so now my form is scored, and I'm going to fold each tab. I like to fold it both ways, just to kind of weaken that crease a little bit more. But since this is just a practice, I'm going to hurry it along. Alright, so there we have our construction tabs, like that, right? So now I've got to fold this like that, and this, I forgot to. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm just checking to see, kind of looks like a taco, if this form is actually going to work. And it looks like it might, but it looks like I've got some adjusting to do. So on this side, let me put this together first, because it's good enough where it'll go together. And now that brings me to my next point, which is gluing. So you're going to use white glue for this. And I happen to have a giant gallon of white glue, and unfortunately I don't have any squeeze bottles of it, but that's fine, because squeeze bottle or not, you use this the same way. So I'm going to pour this in a little paint tray that I had laying around. So I just got, I don't know, it's a little puddle of glue about the size of a quarter. And I'm just going to use my finger. And here's a mistake that I see so often is people pile on the glue, and that does two things. Number one, your paper's going to warp and wrinkle. If you actually soak it, your paper's going to start to wrinkle, and then it dries all crinkly and gross. And then the other thing, it's going to take forever to dry. So if you use a small amount of glue, and I'm going to do just 1/2 at a time, and you notice I dipped my finger in the little glue puddle once, and that was enough for all 4 of those construction tabs. And you'll see how quickly just that little bit of glue adheres. I mean, those sides are already sticking. So it does require a little bit of patience. I mean, the glue, it's not instant like that, but I mean, that's one side glued together. So like I said, just a small amount of glue is enough to hold it. So again, put a little bit of glue on my finger, and that's it. It's not even a glob, it's just a little bit. Let's see. So now it's glued. And like that's like so often students will sit there and complain like, how long is this going to dry for? Forever, because you used 1.5 gallons of glue on it. But if you just use a little bit like I just did, like this, it's not entirely dry, but it's dry enough for me to set it off to the side and then start my next thing, whatever it is. So now I can evaluate whether my ideas and whether my measurements were close enough. So I think I want another little tab. I don't like this little space. I want another little tab here. I'm going to adjust. Actually, I can see that I cut it a little bit too much. So that is actually, that's not bad. I just got to cut it cleaner. But this one on this side is a little off. And shoot. Well, there's no way for me to tell if this is this way or if it's this way. I don't know which end that is. Suppose I should have marked it. Well, so these are minor. Let's see if I can figure this out. What is this tab? All my tabs I drew kind of differently. Oh, that's it. I found it. Good. So this it goes this way. Actually, that makes sense because it does look like it kind of swings. It needs to come up a little bit. But that is an adjustment. That's right, I broke that pencil. That's an adjustment that I can make on the fly. And I may not necessarily need to change the template. So I can... Now if I wanted to though, I could just redraw that little bit and then resubmit it to have more copies made, and I can try it again. So if it doesn't work the first time, if this was an absolute failure, I would have to figure out what went wrong, try to fix it, and then resubmit it. Now you're going to have some time in the beginning of this semester to be able to do that. So we start moving pretty slowly at first through the content. So make sure that before we get started on anything big, that you have a template for a form that you can actually work with. Okay? So now once you're at this point, once you're happy with your template, take your original that we've put off to the side, use a green writing utensil, and give yourself a green check. So that tells me when I'm at the copy machine making these copies, if I see one with just a name without the check, that tells me that you've made adjustments or this is your first try and you just need a couple copies made so that you can test it out. So again, if you just have a name on it, that's the testing run. If you have a green check, that tells me that you tested it, it works, and you're ready for all your copies, which I will make, and then you'll keep them in your folder, and you'll work on this project throughout the semester. So again, I can't stress enough, just a little bit of glue. Little bit. Just a bit. I almost forgot. Once you have your name and your check and I've made you copies, now I told you that, I mentioned it earlier, I've got my construction lines on here, and that when I actually build this, like I built it here, like you can't see anything because I put it together inside out. So you don't have to do that, but I don't want to see construction lines like this. So now when I go to Zentangle, if I want, I can kind of lightly outline. I don't know if you can see that. I'll draw it darker. So that's where my shape is. Let's see if I can hold the light through there. So you can see it through the paper, right? So now when I do my Zentangle, I know where I want to put my patterns. But the cool thing is with this, like I can do a pattern that's just like that's just scribbles. If you cut your forms, if you cut the templates for your forms out before you do the Zentangling, patterns like this are quite difficult to do. So I'm going to show you what this looks like in a second here. maybe go around the edge like that. Maybe do it here on this one too. So, just a bunch of scribbles. Actually, just for fun, let's see what happens when that one comes out. Alright, so I've got it cut, and I made some changes on the fly. So without actually going and making more copies, I added a little tab right here because I felt like at the bottom where it curves right there, that little pocket, I wanted to do something to fix that. So again, just a tiny bit of glue, and a little there, and a little there. There we go. Oops, I forgot to score the centerpiece. So I'm going to be very careful as I fold that together. Right now, I forgot to score that. So that's there we go. Whoops. Put it on there, let it dry. Get a little bit more glue. And do the rest of it. Rub the glue. That's another thing, if you get glue on your hands, actually it's kind of good for you because it sticks to all the dirt and dead skin that's on your hands and actually kind of cleans you. Not that you should go home and take a glue bath or anything, but all right. So the adjustment that I made on this end, it doesn't quite match up, but the nice thing is that it's just too much. So I can actually take an X-Acto knife or a pair of scissors, and all I'm going to do is just, I should wait till it dries. But I can just trim that little edge off. And there you have it. So, again, make a template for a form. Give it to me. I'll make copies for it. Try it out. When it works, give yourself a green check. And then start to zentangle. And about halfway through, near the end of Q3, I will make an announcement and tell you guys that at that point is when you should be just about done doing your zentangle patterns on your forms. Doing your zentangle patterns on these, and that's when you should start actually building the forms together. So, have fun and good luck.